Hey, I'm back. All right, let's talk about kids. How many of you thought or still think that life is all about growing up, getting married, and then raising kids? Of course, you have some schooling in there, or not. And then you have some school moves in there, or not. But the focus you always worked towards was having children. Was that you? Because that has been me for so many years. Oh, these are driving me nuts. Every time. I had the schooling and I have the career, but I waited to get married until I was in my late 20s, and then we waited a hot minute to even try to have kids. Why? Because Eddie and I wanted time for just us and didn't want kids involved in that. But when we started to try and have kids, getting pregnant actually didn't happen, and for some reason couldn't happen. The doctors couldn't figure out why. There's no medical reason. Even after 2 years, IUI and IVF, we still couldn't get pregnant. And even after years of not using any protection, we still haven't gotten pregnant. But going through the actual trying to have a kid, it left me in an emotional mess. I was a disaster, and I kept trying to hide it. I didn't want anybody to see that I was struggling at life. When people learned that we got pregnant, I actually had a few who would ask me every single month if I was pregnant yet. And nope, and nope, and no. And it got really difficult to work with, and I didn't want to hear about it anymore. I didn't want the questions anymore. And then there were those who actually would say, it'll happen when it's meant to happen. Or my all-time favorite was something that absolutely made life difficult because it came from someone I had always wanted to be proud of me. She said, well, maybe it's not meant to be. Didn't even think about what she said or how it would affect us. She just said it and moved on. Whatever. Maybe it isn't meant to happen. I mean, we're here, but in that moment, it really, really hurt. And all throughout that journey, I felt like I was letting Eddie and all of our family down. I was devastated because I was failing. I literally felt like I was a failure. I felt like I failed at giving Eddie a child and giving the family another grandchild or niece or nephew or whatever. I went so deep into that failure rabbit hole, and it wasn't pretty. It didn't feel good either. After our first IVF failed on Eddie's birthday. Yeah, that was shitty. And then we couldn't get the second one in before our insurance no longer covered it because my estrogen levels were actually too high. We decided to call it quits. We needed time and we needed space. It was a rough couple of years of trying, and so many people say, well, trying's the fun part. No, maybe for the first year, when most people, well, I wouldn't say most, when a lot of people actually get pregnant. But for those who can't get pregnant and don't get pregnant in a year or longer, trying isn't the fun part anymore. And that statement just kind of hurts. With going through this kind of situation, I went deeper into my apologetic, people-pleasing mode. I apologized over and over again to family members and to Eddie for not being able to get pregnant or not being able to make a baby. I listened to all of the questions of why did you stop treatments? What about adoption? What about surrogacy? What about? over and over and over again. And honestly, we still get those questions. And while we were trying to have that space, all of these questions weren't giving us space. We asked for space, we asked for time, and family and friends just don't understand it. It's something that is hard for people going through this kind of situation. After finally getting space and getting time to think through it, Eddie and I finally talked it through, and we decided that the best thing for us as a couple, as Eddie and Crystal, as husband and wife, was making the decision not to move forward. We decided we are not adopting. We are not doing any more treatments. We're not trying no more. We are not going to have children. We are going to embrace the child-free life. And it was amazing. Making that decision was so freeing, because I had wrapped up all of my worth in having a kid. For so much of my life, I wrapped it up. I mean, my mom told me, just wait till you graduate high school to get pregnant. And then once I did graduate high school, when are you gonna make me a grandma again? Really, like, I didn't get a chance to even have a life before I was asked for kids. Kids were what it felt like my worth was wrapped up in. And so I attributed so much to having children. And I seriously thought that the only way that I would be fully accepted to the family, or the way I would ever get my grandmother to come visit me in my house, was to have children. That's what I got from the way my sister-in-law was so ingrained with the family, and the way I saw my grandmother going to visit one of my cousins. That's where my mind went. That's the games that this journey played in my mind. And then I took a step back. I wasn't looking at the whole picture. I had to open my mind more. My sister-in-law wasn't ingrained in the family because of her kids. She inserted herself and made the effort and had the years before me. My grandmother didn't go see both of my cousins who had kids, just one. And kids weren't the factor there. I now believe the proximity to her daughters is. Those were things I had to get over. And once I got over those emotional things, I started to realize how freeing living the life without kids could be, and how freeing not worrying about it could be. Eddie and I literally can do whatever we want, whenever we want, because we don't have kids. We don't have little humans running around that we have to worry about. I mean, we can leave our dogs by themselves overnight. Can't do that with kids. I mean, by the time you see this, I've been on a 2-week work trip. We don't have kids. I don't have to worry about Eddie being left with a child or children and me just being like, bye, I'm going to work across the country. Like, it's not a thing. We tried. We truly tried. And we tried for about 2.5 years. And now we're hitting almost 5 years since we started trying. The last 2.5 years of just living life has actually been the best 2.5 years of my life. I have done so much growing. I have done so much just living, because I have learned how to be free and let go and just live without wrapping my worth up in something that I thought was the only thing that people would deem me worthy because I had. From the time I was a little girl, I tied my worth to kids. I mean, I'm a girl. We're given babies and said, hey, play doll, this is your baby. We wrap ourselves up in worth of what we're shown. It's like how can I not tie my worth to having kids? Most of us women are given the impression that getting married and having kids is our only path in life. I think it happened for me sometime in high school, even, that I started hearing, oh, just wait till you have your own kids. I mean, it's something that people assume everyone's going to do. How do we not tie our worth to having kids with this kind of messaging? How do we not tie our worth to having kids when we have no examples of people not having kids? And how do we do this when we are not emotionally strong on our own? So many of us are not. We weren't raised to be. And I think that's a generational thing, but life. It wasn't until I started to be selfish and truly take care of myself and my emotions that I started to break free from that messaging I grew up with. Kids do not, let me repeat that, kids do not determine my worth or your worth or anybody's worth. Kids are not the determining factor of whether you are worthy for anything. I am my own person. You are your own person. Making little people doesn't make any of us a better person. I never truly questioned when I was growing up if I truly wanted kids, because it wasn't something that I subconsciously knew that was questionable. I always just knew I was gonna have kids because that's what women do. I, for the longest time, was one of those people who couldn't understand why people didn't have kids. When I started working for the fraternity, I met a few couples who didn't have kids. I was like, how do you not have kids? Like, everyone has kids. I thought they were missing out on life. But I was wrong. Yep, I said it. I was wrong. I mean, there are many lives to be led, and I'm really learning this, and my eyes are opening. My narrow views are being expanded, and we can live with or without kids, and each of us live our own life and all commingle. It doesn't take kids to exist together. We have to stop living the lives of people around us just to be accepted and feel worthy. We have to stop looking outside of ourselves to determine our worth. Kids do not determine any woman's or man's worth. A woman is worth everything without kids. A man is worth everything without kids. I find it odd. It is more acceptable for a man to not want kids than it is for a woman to not want kids. I don't think that is fair at all, but that goes into a bigger issue in our society. So just remember, I'm sure there are more women watching this video than men. Girl, you are worth absolutely everything, even if you don't want a damn kid. I mean, kids are awesome. I have a kid in picture right there. I have kids' pictures in my kitchen. I have nieces and nephews, and we love them. But me having a child does not determine my worth. I am worthy without having any kids. I mean, I'm enjoying my life wholeheartedly with Eddie and just our 2 dogs. We explore and spend our money on what we want for ourselves. We get to be adventurous without worrying about the safety of a small human. I get to travel for work without worrying about leaving Eddie at home with children. We can pick up and travel whenever we want without worrying about school schedules or additional expensive flights, the seats for children. I don't have to worry about snot on everything because kids just snot everywhere, or being too loud when enjoying time with Eddie. I mean, we get to do whatever we want, whenever we want, wherever we want. and I continue to advance my career while Eddie does the same without worrying whether either of us is spending too much time working rather than with our kids. Not being able to conceive my own child doesn't determine my worth. Yes, we could have adopted, but that didn't feel like the path for us. We took the path that enriched our lives and helped me to be sane, because that is more important than giving a child a life. We have to be sane before we raise little humans. I wish more people thought about that. I have to be able to do more work on myself, because in the past few years, I'm learning to challenge anything and everything that I thought my worth was wrapped up in. I have to keep doing my work, and honestly, right now, without children, I can do work on myself harder and more in depth because I don't have those distractions. I want to leave you with this quote that I found on Pinterest. Sometimes walking away has nothing to do with weakness and everything to do with strength. We walk away not because we want others to realize our worth and value, but because we finally realize our own. I don't know who said that, found it on Pinterest, but I walked away from having children because I finally realized my own worth. You are the only person who determines your worth and your value. You. Just you. Remember, my imperfect warriors, you already have what it takes. Believe in yourself and crush every failure on your way to your dreams. Let's go out and be imperfect together. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and ring that bell to get notifications. See you later.